Yes.
So a land rental, a resource rental.
Yes.
And so then what do you call the right to pollute or the sin taxes? So in a way, those really are taxes because they are things being clawed back or charged to offset negative behaviors or externalities.
No,
that
it's just a
affect
rent
public
for
life.
using the commons. It's a rent for polluting the water, it's a rent for polluting the biosphere.
Let's call it subscription, even better. You know,
Oh, you can go on really.
Yeah.
You call it a levy and then you
Yeah.
build English redefines a levy.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. You want to use our airport, you have to pay a levy.
Yes.
But it's more than the right to, because they are
Yeah.
undesirable behaviours
sorry.
we're wanting to
Okay.
disincentivize.
Yeah, right. And
Yes.
so
It
I
means
think,
the monopoly,
Yeah.
it means the monopoly use, excluding other people, of the commons.
yeah, so I think it's fair to call those taxes because we don't have a better word for them. But I think, sometimes the word rent does fit better.
It is, because and then you actually can get on with pointing out that there is a commons. And then you're renting the right to use it.
well, yeah, there's a good
Monopoly use.
one.
Yeah. When you're talking about space or capacity, like land or electromagnetic spectrum, those sort of things, rent will work there. But if you're talking about harvesting a natural resource, like the fish in the ocean, it's not so much a rent.
It's more of a royalty
Rents and royalties.
or a license. Yeah, I guess, you have a system of royalties, licenses, rents, and you could adapt the language to fit what is actually taking place. So it describes the mechanics of the situation. Bit of a digression. But the concept of tax as government revenue, I think, is a deep-seated falsehood, just like the notion that a surplus is good. It's been repeated, it's become a mantra, and we touched on this yesterday when we had the discussion about how do we counter this dominant discourse. And Bruce came out with, they, meaning the neoliberal consensus builders, have manufactured a sort of 10 commandments that thing, when it says growth is good, tax is bad, government surplus is healthy, all these things that are just accepted as canon by of course by the powers that be, but by the public at large. And they're all false, they're all provably false, and some of them are pretty toxic. So in order for us to counter those, we have to be really clear on why tax is not revenue, on why growth is impossible in a bounded system, and be able to explain that so that we don't wind up tripping ourselves up in logical loops and things like that.
So if you're not calling the government income as, you're not calling it revenue, you're not calling it tax, why are you calling it tax?
I think the Pagovian taxes, the sin taxes, could legitimately be called taxes.
Yeah.
What do you call income tax?
A travesty.
Apart from that, what's the
Revenue,
name?
well, that's,
I call it theft and disincentive to entrepreneurship.
It's a drag on
Oh,
productivity.
some landowners would call a land rental theft as well because they think they were there first. So, theft is a relative term.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem because we have a taxation system. It's a relatively new phenomenon. That it used to be taxes were collected by the sovereign as tribute, and even though they were collected by armed guards, and you could have your head cut off if you refused to pay, the payment was often not in the coin of the realm. Payment was often in bushels of wheat, teams of oxen.
So soldiers.
What's the
Yeah, or
revenue source?
your healthy sons
What's
to
the
go
revenue
fight.
source for the king? That's how
The
the
revenue
got the
source-
revenue.
The revenue source for the king is the fact that he's got a vast territory of land with peasants growing crops on it,
Yeah,
and
that's
able-bodied sons that can go out and fight
the
wars
revenue you get
and
from
get
that.
gold from other kingdoms.
Yeah, but we have a present day tax gathering revenue in-gathering system, which is
Because,
still backed with the force of the police and the army
Right.
and the laws.
and that's
So,
where,
I
yeah.
mean, what has changed?
What has
really?
changed is that 98% of our money is issued by private banks. The government needs money to run, and they refuse to issue it themselves, so they've got to get it from us.
Borrow.
That's the critical thing.
Or
Or borrow it from banks.
Borrow it
Yeah.
from overseas banks.
Yeah.
Ah, poor
Right.
things.
So that's the problem. See, that's how tax became
overseas.
government revenue. That's how tax became government revenue. But as long as the government has the ability in law to issue legal tender, then the notion that its only source of revenue is tax or borrowing is false. It tells us that that's the only way. Margaret Thatcher said there is no alternative, but Margaret Thatcher was lying. There is no alternative.
But it's been going for a long time.
No, it's not.
It's been going hundreds of years.
No.
Yeah, well, that's
It's about 100 years old.
The kings have been going to the merchant bankers to